I'm getting personal. And I'm going to try not to cry. Hi guys, it's Leilani over at Living with Eve, and today's going to be an extra kind of video, like a bonus video this week. I'm going to be talking about our updates for our homeschool plans over the summer, kind of like a check-in, but it's kind of like a big check-in because I just released a book, a homeschool book, an encouragement book. It's called Freedom to Learn, and it's this idea that you do not have to conform. You are a homeschooler, you do your homeschooling the way that you think best. And this book I wrote a year ago, and it's been through the whole process, and now that I'm going back and getting it ready to read for Audible and all these things, and rereading it again, it's ministering to me. The Lord is ministering to me through this book, and as well as so many other people. That it all started with the FPA homeschool convention. Nope, it started before that with Anna from Just Making It Work. We had a conversation about Teach Them Diligently conference. And then along with Anna, along with Katie from Life in the Mundane, just having these deep conversations. And then even going to the FPA conference, just having different people speak into my life, like, Ginger Hubbard, Connie Albers, Dr. Jason Lyle, Ken Ham. I read one of his books, as well as Sheologians. I've been listening to them like a lot. All these people, all these voices, along with my close friends that I mentioned before, and Summer and Ashey and Meghan, and just all these people, and Sarah Rouse, Rolling with the Rouses. I could go on and on. It's almost like they're all saying the same thing to me, which tells me it's not them, it's God speaking to me about things, and I need to talk about it. But I do want to give you our summer update. And summer update is this, okay? Basically, our plan for Naomi was to continue down the path. I didn't really know where I was going, but I was just going to keep doing things with her. The reality is I just shut down. I said, I'm done schooling her right now. She's preschool, we're not schooling. I'm done. We're going to read books. I'm not really doing much except taking her to therapies. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what she is. Let's just be completely, horribly frank and honest right now with you. She is stubborn as all get out. Like, she's stubborn. And I know people are like, well, my child's stubborn too. Yeah, no. Like, there's not much of a breaking point unless I want to manhandle her, which I'm not like that kind of fan of manhandling my child when they don't want to do something. I'm not going to force her. I'm not going to force her to do something. I want to figure out how I can manipulate, and manipulate's a really bad word, but get her to like that thing. So that quitting, I just quit homeschooling, and we're deschooling, but not deschooling because we never did school. Anyway, we're handwriting without tears. But handwriting without tears was great, don't get me wrong. It was awesome. It just didn't work for her. And so I've been doing a lot of reading and a lot of research on Down syndrome and reading. I got a book about reading, teaching Down syndrome kids to read, and then I found a program which seems to be like the go-to program for all parents who have Down syndrome. I actually am going to make a video specific to that program. I'm kind of excited about it. It is called So Happy to Learn, and hold on, I'll show you. I've been putting together a little box because that's part of like what you do is a little box, and I've been printing out books and binding them, and like this, and it's sight reading. It's not phonics, and it's very, very visual, and it's very, very simple. The lady who wrote it, her name is Terry Brown. She worked for years, many, 20 plus years, teaching kids with Down syndrome how to write, and her philosophy is very different. She recognizes that these kids are stubborn, she recognizes that they're visual learners, and she recognizes that they're capable of doing so much. There's just, you've got to figure out how to speak to their hearts. This is also the book that I was reading that I was talking about, which inspired the curriculum. And I haven't really read much. I've just kind of skimmed through it a little bit, but I've really been focused on the curriculum. I feel like this is going to be something that I read as I go through all the things. But I'm going to talk about this curriculum much, much later because we haven't started it yet. I've just simply gathered and researched and learned, because when you subscribe to that program, there's a lot of learning beforehand. And that's what I'm doing. I'm having to relearn things with her. Meanwhile, we're just playing. I mean, everything. What did we do today? We went swimming for like 2 hours this morning and, played. We just did life. Oh, she did color. We have been keeping up with some coloring. She likes to draw on the board. She drew a chicken on the board, and she draws people on the board, and it's just, she's doing it on her own, and I'm just telling her how wonderful she is. That's pretty much what I've been doing with her. Other than that, when I do stuff with the older kids, she's just kind of there listening, so to speak. So with the other kids, we're just kind of schooling together. And so we have 3 main core subjects, and piano, because piano needs to be worked on every day for 30 minutes. But we have math, some kind of language arts, so we did really bring it down to just one language arts type. And then we also have Spanish. So we've been doing those 3 subjects, plus the one thing extra is just a rotation of unit studies. For math, obviously, we've got some teaching textbooks in there and some extra stuff in there because they're pretty much done with teaching textbooks, just to kind of make sure they don't hit that summer slide. Very simple stuff. And then for language arts, we've really been focused in on spelling. So they've been trying to finish out the year's spelling book, which we didn't have finished before. So now they're just kind of finishing out, and we're using Soaring with Spelling for all 3 of my kids. For Spanish, we're using Homeschool Spanish Academy, and we just jumped on board with TalkBox Mom, which I'm finding my kids really, really, really like. And I have some thoughts that are going through my head in regards to learning a foreign language that I'm probably going to talk about later in the game, after we probably later in December, once I hit that 1-year mark with Homeschooling Spanish Academy and working with TalkBox Mom for a good 6 months, just to I'm going to wait to share with you some thoughts that I have. I did want to mention the rotation of the unit studies that we've been doing. We started with poetry. And poetry was great. I mean, I brought one of the books up. They did the entire Usborne book. This was one of the doors that just opened everything up for us. They could write poems on whatever they wanted to, pretty much. And I discovered that they had a lot of thoughts in their heads that they loved, and a lot of things that they loved that I did not really recognize. And that was a huge eye-opener. Another huge eye-opener was when my husband had made the decision that he actually made this earlier in the year, and he was doing it pretty consistent throughout the year, and then he dropped off a little bit in May when we were kind of doing vacations and such, but then he picked it back up after the FPEA homeschool convention, because I think he himself was convicted, and I bugged him to get back to it. But he started sitting down with the kids and doing some serious Bible studies. And it's not just like, hey, let's open a devotional, but let's really start learning how to defend your faith and understand why you believe what you believe and start building those foundations. So my husband has actually been spending time with my kids 30 minutes to an hour every morning, going through some scripture memory with them that will, and the purpose, and understand the purpose behind the scripture memory, what the actual scripture means, how they can apply it to their life, and how they can defend their faith. Then I'm sitting over here reading up on Ginger Hubbard, because she spoke at the conference, totally spoke into my life about raising children God's way with that biblical foundation and correcting them and biblical discipline. It's the idea of using more biblical terminology instead of saying, don't hit, but say use self-control with your hands. I mean, there's a whole thing with Don't Make Me Count to 3, which is a book that I purchased like years ago, and I got mad at it and threw it away. So that's a whole nother thing, because I was convicted. I felt like I would not be capable of doing it. I was taking it very legalistic, thinking if I made one mistake, I was officially a failure, instead of recognizing that it is a lifestyle and it's something you have to grow into. And that's what I realized at the conference this year when she spoke on biblical discipline. So of course, I purchased the book, and I actually had a small group of friends together to do the Bible study together. So I'm in this little zone with her, right? Biblical discipline. On the other hand, I've got my husband doing, the apologetic stuff with the kids in the morning, just really laying out that foundation. And then I've also started the Not Consumed. They have their devotionals. I didn't mention that. The kids have a devotional every single day. We did the sibling one. We just finished Obeying, and I think we're going to jump into, I bought all of them. I just bought all of them. Like, I'm like, the kids really, they connect with it. They have their quiet time with it. And we're doing the quiet time one next, but they just connected with it. And so they've got their devotionals going. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing from all these different teachings and people the same thing over and over again. I've got Sheologians over here, which I don't know if you're familiar with Sheologians. It's a podcast. And it's, if you know who James White, it's his daughter. They're talking about it, which leads me down another rabbit trail, thinking about, labels and, hanging, where is our identity? I'm going to do video on that. You'll see. Where does our identity come from? Does it come from, my daughter has Down syndrome. She is Down syndrome, but that's not her identity. Her identity is in Messiah. Then I had another person speak to me that had a relative that has a disability and literally was unsure of their salvation based on their disability. Well, first of all, that response, I was like, what? And then my son even said to me, he's worried about Naomi's salvation. I don't know why my son is worried about Naomi's salvation, because he doesn't know if she understands who God is, and that concerns him. Just this is all kind of personal stuff right now, right? I'm sorry. I'm getting so personal right now. So I've got that going on. And then here I am, at the homeschool convention listening to Dr. Jason Lisle, and his stuff's really interesting. It's Biblical Apologetics. So I was really interested in that, went to his website and found a talk on education, and here he is talking about teaching your kids from a biblical worldview in all areas, which took me on another little trail down over to Ken Ham, who has a new book. Well, I don't know how old it is, pretty new, the Divided Nations, which is all about pretty much that. Like, you either have a secular worldview or a biblical worldview. There's no in between. And then back to Sheologians recommending a book on their channel, which I have it on Scribd, and Total Truth. Didn't even know what it was about. They just said it was good. So I contact my friend Rian, and she's like, yeah, I'll read the book with you. And then I'm listening to it, and it's pretty much like everything that everybody else was talking about. And then there's my book that I wrote, which is all about homeschooling the way that you want to homeschool your kids. And what are your purposes? What are your goals? Are you letting the educational system brainwash your mind? And my answer, of course I'm sitting here like preaching it, right? And then I realized I have let the school system, in some senses, brainwashed my mind. And it's like a constant everyday battle to unbrainwash. Every morning I have to wake up and say, today I'm not going to think like this. I'm going to look at things through a biblical eyeglasses, because that's the way I want to treat my kids, the way I want to raise my kids. I want them to see the world through biblical glasses, through the way that God sees them. And I want their identity to be found in Messiah, as opposed to any disability that they may have. Because if you think about it, like even something as simple as ADHD, okay? As simple as that could be used as a crutch for you not to be able to do something that God has created you or designed you to do. All of us have something, all of us, you have unique talents and gifts and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But are we allowing the world to dictate to us how we use them, or are we allowing God to dictate to us how to use them? So how am I applying this all to my schooling? Honestly, I have just taken a back seat and relaxed into this idea of, I really want my kids to know Scripture, but know God and defend their faith. And I want them to have a solid background in this. My husband taking the lead. Like, he's legit taking the lead in all of this. I know you guys don't see my husband interact too much, and really, honestly and truly, side note, the only reason you don't is because he does not want to be filmed, and he's made that clear. Like, he's had a few moments. We had him do like a little like Q&A Passover video once, but that's pretty much it. He doesn't like be on camera. But that is seriously the only reason you have not seen him as much interact. But he has taken the lead. He doesn't go to work until 12 o'clock in the middle of the afternoon. So he spends the morning with my kids just really working on laying those foundations. I have made it a point to be present in the room as my husband does that. And Naomi is present in the room as my husband does that, whether we're coloring, whether we're eating, whether we're like, I don't know, playing hand games, because that's happened once. And we're listening. We're just there. She started to actually start saying some of the prayers with the kids and praying with the kids, which has been really, really sweet. But I'm on this journey, and I don't want to cry either. It's a very intimidating journey. It's been there, but I haven't embraced it. I've inched closer and inch closer and inch closer, but now I'm being forced to fully embrace it, if that makes any sense. But I don't like making videos talking about me only, because that's not why I'm on YouTube. The reason I wanted to come on here to vent, and not vent, it's not even venting, it's just expressing what God is doing in my life. I want to encourage you to follow God's path for your homeschooling life. To the believer who is out there seeking secular curriculum, homeschool curriculum that doesn't incorporate God, that's not teaching your kids good apologetics and logic to really help them understand and defend what they believe. If you're not doing that, or you're on the fence about it, you get to pick what those core subjects are, with the exception of those states that I know say you have to do this, this, and this. But yeah, you do those, but then you can add apologetics, and even with science, you could do creation science instead of, biology or chemistry from a secular book. You can use apologia. You could use answers in Genesis. History, you don't have to use a secular book. You could use things like Truth Quest or Mystery of History that have that biblical worldview kind of leading it along the way. And apologetics and Bible. We always say Bible, but how many of us have pushed Bible to the wayside because it's not a core subject? It's not something that you had as a core subject when you were a public school student. How many kids do we know and we see in our churches, as soon as they hit college, they're gone? How many churches and congregations have a strong youth program or a young adult program? Not many, because they don't have that strong foundation laid when they were in schools. But as a homeschool parent, we have to, it is easy. It's easy to get or to fall back into just doing what the public school, like doing what we were used to. That's what I'm saying. It's an everyday struggle and everyday step by step. And so that's kind of what's been going on with me. I'm going to go ahead and put all the links to all the resources that have been speaking into my life, as well as my book. Like I said, it's speaking into my life. Our children do not fit the public school mold. They don't, because the public school is secular. It's a secular worldview. And it's not a biblical worldview for those of us. I'm assuming that those of you guys that are left are still left are Christian. So let's just be frank. We want to raise our kids from a biblical perspective. So why are we using that same thought process and mentality as the public school? Also, I'm preparing to be teaching at the Homeschool Co-op, which I do every year, and I've been really praying and seeking the Lord. I teach science, ironically. I'm praying about how I'm going to be approaching the co-op. Now, in the past, I always make it clear on open house that I teach from a biblical perspective, hands down. And I do. And last year, I taught astronomy out of Dr. Jason Lyle's astronomy book that they sell through Master Books and Answers to Genesis, and that's what we did. We did it from a biblical worldview. I also taught inventions last year, which was something that was inspired by Gather. Almost most of it I actually kind of put together. It was a lot of work, but it is from a biblical perspective. We prayed at the beginning of class. This year I am teaching forensic science, which is really, really fun, super fun, but I have not been able to find a book yet from a biblical worldview. So that's going to be fun. And I am also I'm teaching speech and debate, but I'm also teaching animals, right? And I'm going to be using Answers in Genesis to be doing a lot of that because we're doing like the most extreme animals. So every week we do a different animal that's unique and has, the fastest animal. We're going to do a cheetah, and then we're going to talk about how that's God's design and how, those kind of things. So yeah, there's a lot going through my mind and a lot of things that I'm thinking about. I'm trying to find ways to bring things in from a biblical worldview into all of the subjects and how we live. Even mathematics, like, even though I will continue using teaching textbooks, it is not a Christian organization, even though a lot of Christians use it. However, it's hard to do with math. It's really hard to do with math. So we've been talking a lot with my kids about how math is how God thinks. Math is not something that was created by humans. It was something that we discovered. I think math is fun. I actually do. And my kids are kind of picking up a little bit on them. My 10-year-old, he's really smart, actually. He also reads like you would not believe. And so some of the books that I've actually been buying for him and having him read are from Christian authors. So I'll just kind of show you really quick. This is one of the books that he read. He's done. Now my other son, the 12-year-old, is quickly reading through this. This is on day 2 and he's almost done. We got these at the homeschool convention. I met Chuck Black and we're blowing through them pretty much. And we're going to also be blowing through all of his other books, which ironically are on Scribd, which I have. We listen to them on audiobooks, so we're going to be doing that as well. And I'm just I'm on the lookout for some more good, solid, if it's not a Christian-based book, just good morals, good Christian morals that we can kind of teach our kids. I feel kind of weird doing this video because it's kind of personal. You guys are friends. I do. I consider you guys friends. Especially since I've had I enjoy reading your comments, and I love reading through those long comments that really share your heart and your thoughts on the matter. And it is a journey. It's a journey that all of us are going through in this world together, separately. And I really think all of us are here to just encourage each other. In reality, all of us have kids that are unique and don't fit the mold. Whether or not they have a disability, a learning disability, or special needs. If you're still watching this video, your kid probably doesn't fit the mold. Then again, what kid does? And what is a mold anyway? Let's just think, The only mold that I want to fit is God's mold that he molded and crafted specifically for me and my family. So let's put our kids in. Let's do what we can do to allow our kids to fall into that mold, into the hands of God, his creation. Yeah. All right. So I think I've talked enough. Thank you guys for sticking around. And like I said, bonus video this week, along with my book, my book coming out and all that fun stuff, which I hope you guys like. It has been speaking to me a lot, especially the introduction is very powerful, I think. And a lot of these stories are very powerful too. Just knowing that the public school, the education system that we have is not end all be all. It's not our dictator. I said dictator on purpose, but it's not our dictator. Yeah. I just leave it there. I'll leave it there. Are we putting our trust in an old educational system that is obviously failing, or are we putting our trust in the Lord? But thank you guys for sticking around. I said that already, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you guys for sticking around, and I'm going to get off, do some more reading because I've turned into this crazy reading, I don't know what you would reading person. I'm a reading person. I'm going to go back to reading. 3 of my kids are asleep, and it's 7:30. We had a long day today. All right, I'll see you guys in my next video next week. We're going to talk about, I don't know what order I'm going to put it in, but check out the one on labels when that one comes out, because I'm going to talk about labels. And I also did one on science. Yeah, I just review all my curriculum, and I've been teaching at the co-op 7 years for homeschool. Nope, 10 years. 10 years at the homeschool co-op. So, all right, I'm leaving, and I'll see you in my next video. All right, bye.